Paula. Hello to you, gorgeous woman.
Hi, Terry. Thanks for having me on.
I am absolutely thrilled to have you on, and I know there's going to be a lot of people out there that are going to be just as thrilled, if not more so, because we have a topic today or tonight or this morning, wherever and whenever you happen to be listening to this, that is around the creation of money and business. And boy, oh boy, are you the right woman to talk on this topic.
Thank you.
You know, one of the things I always say is that our zone of genius, which is, of course, what this show is all about, usually comes from a really big pain in our life, you know, and I say that the pain of the story becomes the person's glory. And, you know, there are so many parallels that I see in my life and your life. But money, to begin with, was not actually a value for you, Paula. And before we go into the nitty-gritties, you know, I guess I can see how it wouldn't have been, because you led a pretty kind of I want for nothing life as a young woman growing up. You know, you had the private schools and, you know, tell us about your life growing up. You obviously didn't want for anything. Money wasn't really a huge kind of issue to be there, to be wanted.
Exactly. I had a really beautiful childhood growing up. You know, we had nice cars, we had, you know, overseas holidays, we had private schools, we had, you know, in all the different sports and, you know, activities. I just didn't see it as like something that I really needed to want for. And somehow, you know, you just sort of build your life at that same standard. And you know, as I, you know, progressed and, you know, got my own, you know, career, I built it up to the same standard for my kids and for myself for many, many years. It's just what I was used to and what I was accustomed to, I guess.
Yeah. And I mean, if you don't need it and you don't want it, then, you know, it's not there, is it, to be needed or wanted? It's like, really, I heard someone say the other day that, you know, the moment a person's health goes down or a person who is suffering from major health issues only wants one thing. That's all they want, right? And sometimes I wonder if people out there are wanting money too much. And maybe it's a bit like a lover. You know, you see that person who's chasing their soulmate or wanting that lover. And so the more they're craving for it and the more they're sorting after it, it's like the more it's running away from them.
That is so true. That is so true. It is, isn't it? You start to repel it. Yeah, absolutely.
Very, very. And I mean, you had to have like a couple of turning points in your life, like obviously some really, really, really big shake-up calls. But I guess one of the things that you had, which would thrill a lot of people, is you decided to embark on a T-shirt business and start selling T-shirts on Amazon. Can you tell us about how you started that business, where that creation came from?
It was very random, Terry. I was in a Tony Robbins event. It was my first event of that sort of liking, and I'm in his UPW and everyone's singing out, and Tony gets you to get all revved up about building a business. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, I'm a corporate girl. Okay, all right, I'm going to build a business. Awesome. He's like, what skills do you have? And I'm like, well, I designed a couple of T-shirts for my family. Maybe I was wearing one of the T-shirts that I designed, right? It was just very basic. I thought it was fun. And I thought, well, maybe I could put them, you know, and sell these T-shirts somehow. And so I thought, okay, well, I don't really know how to do that. So I hired a coach who had done a similar business, and she helped me to put the things in place to be able to get that business going. And I got into a community of like all Amazon merch type people doing the same thing. And within a couple of months, I was so surprised. All of a sudden, my T-shirts started selling on the top 10 pages of Amazon. I woke up one morning and I saw a T-shirt that had just gone viral, which meant that I was just taking royalties. Like I didn't have to ship it. I didn't have to do anything. It was just money off the top, and I didn't have to do any more for it. And I just saw this light of, wow, I don't actually have to work harder. Like I can put the effort in and then it just pays me back. Wow, this is really amazing.
Incredible, you know, like, so you had this idea about T-shirts and you put it up and then it just went viral. What do you think was the big hit about it? What is it? Was it just that you were do you feel like your mindset and your body and your frequency was all about, oh yeah, let's just do this? And, you know, were you in a fun kind of a laid back kind of a mode, or were you like really full on serious and really kind of sitting down and creating everything? Like, tell us about, you know, where did all of that kind of wisdom come from?
Well, there was a lot. There definitely was a lot of me YouTubing how to use things, because you know, when I finished high school, you know, we barely had, you know, you'd have to study computers to have a computer class. Like we didn't, you know, just email was just coming out, that kind of stuff. So I just didn't have those tech skills to sort of, like, I was great at Excel because that's what I used at work. But other than that, like, I didn't know how to use Photoshop. I didn't really know how to use a lot of how to upload things and do all that stuff. And I had to YouTube it and find out how to do it. So I just, you know, I'm a very disciplined person. I mean, I've got an accounting background, so it's very, very disciplined, right? So I just decided that my mornings would be the only time before the kids woke up, before I went to work, that I had to be able to do this. So I just decided that I was going to get up and I was going to start early, and I was going to design and upload and research and do all the things around the business before I went to work. Now, what I got it down to was a really neat little system where I could design it, have all the things ready to go. And then when I was on the train going into work, I was just uploading, because uploading took a while, but it was super easy to do. So I had by the end of it, I had little systems at the gaps in time that I had in the day to utilize those gaps for my business.
Wow. And look, I want to really just grab a gold nugget in there. And because there's people here, obviously, that are going to be really, really going, well, how do I get into that mindset? You know, what does it take for me to make money? And, you know, what does it take to become a really successful coach? Or for that fact, what does it take for me to be able to put something up on Amazon and make it work? But I heard one big gold nugget in there, and it's around discipline. Okay. Now, the discipline, it's not like you had to discipline yourself to do something that was like a million things. It was that you actually allocated a part of your day that was your time. So you were almost like giving yourself that provision, you know, like the Atomic Habits. If you read the book Atomic Habits, it talks about how one thing leads to the next, leads to the next. So, you know, what I'm hearing you say is, well, this is my time before the kids get up. I get everything done here. And it just goes to show that making that consistent and self-disciplined and atomic kind of a progress work is amazing. So how big did this T-shirt business become? I know, you know, I'm not sure the timeline or how long you were in it, but, you know, how big did it become?
So I ended up having about 900 designs, 4 designers working for me. And you know, not every one of those designs is successful, right? And as you were saying before, like I was disciplined, but I was also disconnected, right? I wasn't pushing hard. It was fun. It was just like, if this works, great. but let's just give it time. Let's just see if it works. If not, I've got some T-shirts that I can buy for my family members for Christmas, type of thing. Like that was the
good. I like it. And
there's
the
push.
second truth. The disconnection, and the disconnection in a very, very good way, by the way. In other words, can I change that word to
Yes.
detached?
Yes.
You were detached from the outcome, and you even had a kind of a mental backup plan that, well, if it didn't work, then you would do this, so was it relatively successful? Like, what would you say in relation to success?
Yeah, so I ended up making more money in my sleep on those, and I estimated by the end of it, I was spending 3 hours a day on that business. So in the morning, and then my lunch, not my lunch break, my train commutes added up to 3 hours a day. And in that 3 hours a day, I was earning more money than I was in my high-end corporate career. So I was ready to jump into this, right? I was ready to go, yep, you know what, this is my thing.
I hope my sister listens into this. But, it just, a lot of people, we deal with so many people that are, that they're looking to something that they can connect in with. And the fact that you did this, and, you were making money while you sleep, I mean, that's really the name of the game, right? Making money. I mean, that's automation in the creation. So what can I say? But then, alas, there's always a loss in every good story, I'm afraid. It's like, watching the best superhero movie of your life, right? And this superhero in this story woke up one day and discovered that her marriage had collapsed. Now, obviously a breakdown of marriage. You talked to me backstage about that happening in the most kind of like almost a smooth sort of a way, but then you also kind of alluded to the fact that it was a shock. How could something so shocking be so smooth? Can I ask that question?
Yes. It's because even though it was a smooth process to speak through it and both express that, yes, this is probably the best option for us, I never really expected it to actually happen. And for him to not fight for me, not fight for the relationship and just go, yep, that's okay. So it was very smooth and shocking, and even more shocking to get up the next morning to jump onto my T-shirt business, because that's the first thing I would do every morning regardless, and not be able to log on. Like, all of my logins were changed. I couldn't contact my designers. I couldn't see my T-shirts. I was just absolutely devastated.
This is like one of those movies. You see a movie, it's like usually it's in the banks or something, or someone's bank account, and there's all the millions or the thousands or whatever it is, and then one day they go in and they tap into it and everything's gone. It's just empty. Was it that dramatic? Like, was that just cleared out?
Yes. Well, I couldn't get into the business. So I, after a little bit, checked my bank account, realized my bank account was zero as well. And I calmly said, there's something wrong with my passwords, because we're still there in the house, right? It's like, no, there's nothing wrong. That's my business and that's my money. And I found myself walking out with pretty much a box of Barbie dolls, my kids, and what I could carry. And that's pretty much what I had for the next 7 months. 7 months of trying to get that business back and trying to get my stuff back as well.
My gosh, just when you think it's bad to have a person whom you trusted, like I was talking to you backstage, and the synchrony of, even though yours is on a massive scale, because you're talking about, a whole loss of your whole entire business, like to wake up one morning, to log on and to see everything just empty, and then to go to your bank account and see everything wiped out. And this is like, I've had this experience with an entrusted virtual assistant, and all of a sudden logged out of everything and nothing nowhere to be found. And it's almost like the universe said, I want you to have the same taste to what Paula has gone through, because this is the woman making millions and ready to completely embrace. And that first million that you've virtually made, from so close to a hair, that between you and that first million that you've created, that's taken you from zero to hero. So from absolutely diddly squat, where and now, I do have to raise the point, going back to the story about the fact that you grew up, wanting for nothing. So money was never in your value system, because obviously it's like air, right?
It was never, yeah. And even, my parents were very calm about things. Like, if, they would just pay for things, like nothing was stressed about, or there was no stress about money at all. So for me, it was a massive shock to lose it all, because I had never had to shop like that before. I'd never had to think about what I was spending my money on. So it brought me back into this space where I think a lot of people have come from, and I had to navigate my way through something that I'd never been through before.
Yeah, and boy, oh boy, have you done that well. And I know a lot of people are going to be very interested to hear about that in just a moment. But I do have a question which is quite critical, and that is that, I guess, I don't know whether how, I never like the word how, because it's not about the how, but it's more about the why or the what. But what did you have to believe, think, or create in your mind's eye to let go of what your ex did and actually kind of restore that belief? Because I know where I'm sitting right now. I mean, mine's very fresh, and there's you feel a huge betrayal, and you feel like,
Yes.
if you don't mind me saying so, and I'm not saying that this, you've never insinuated this about your ex, but for me, I'm thinking, was that person an imposter? How can a person go from being so obliging for 2.5 years to suddenly turning their whole back and letting everything just fall apart because they couldn't make one small sacrifice for the business? And, that sacrifice wasn't a big one. It was going to be one that would feed her pocket. So my question is, what do you do about restoring that kind of trust? Because I know there's a lot of people out there too that lose much more, like your situation, where you may lose just about everything, like you lost everything. When you said that to me now, when I invited you onto the show, I thought, oh, okay, that'll be interesting. And I didn't think it was going to be quite so radical. But tell us, what is the secret weapon to restoring what you can think about that other person? You did mention something before we clicked live, but I didn't kind of store it.
Yes.
So what is it? What do you think it is?
So what I've learnt and what I believe is that there's no right or wrong. There just is. So there is their version and your version, and that can be on completely different planes because you have different values, you have different experiences. And so I just accept that that is where they are and that is where I am, and that's how I can get past and accept it. And what I had to do is really entrust myself. Like, I had to create a new version of me, a stronger version. And to do that,
you could never go back and be that same person again. I mean,
no,
let's face it, be beating your head against the wall or repeating a very, 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 very bad pattern. If you did, you can't possibly try to crack the code to open up the safe if you're using the same numbers. So
exactly.
it's going to be a different pathway. So you literally rebirthed yourself.
Yes, I recreated myself. In that sort of space of 7 months where I was going through a divorce, going through not having a home, like having to move in with my parents, with all sorts of boxes around me, with my kids. It was just a bit of a disaster. I just decided that the only thing I could take control of was creating this new version of myself. So I focused on my mantras. I focused on my health. I focused on getting myself to the best fitness that I could possibly get. I focused so much on just creating this new life in my head that I believed it, and things started to shift into place around it. So I would walk down the street, or I'd be walking on my lunch break, and all I was saying in my head was my mantras. I was walking to the coffee shop, all I would say is my mantras, so that I was telling myself over and over and over again. I was using all the NLP techniques that I was learning to just anchor all of that in for myself over and over again. And that is what made the biggest shift, because things then started to shift around me because I started to believe different stuff about myself.
And can I ask, were you really able, do you think a piece of it was that you were able to forgive and release and let go of your ex around what he did?
I think it took me a long time to let go, and I realized, and I don't think I really did that until last year, really, like fully let go. And when I did that, I let go of a lot, because what I realized was, that guilt, that shame, that sadness, that anger that was there was only me putting that there. It was only me because I was thinking those thoughts over and over and over again. It wasn't any external force. Those people have moved on. They're doing their thing, right?
Yeah, and I mean, and nobody ever drank poison in and expected the other person to actually cop the consequences, And I think this is the real thing. We're only poisoning ourselves by that. And even with my VA, I knew that I had to go to the next level. And I knew that it was something that I wanted to do, but I had this incredible bond, and I had an incredible belief and an incredible amount of loyalty, even to the point that I kind of created, if you will, a role for her to fit into that great big vision that's coming out in 2024. But thank you. I so appreciate hearing this. And, let's talk about the way that a person can change their mindset, because I know that this is really big for our audience. And, the first thing is, if you are so desperate for money, if a person is really, really like lacking it and wanting it so badly, what would you recommend, with every muster of your own experience, with maybe a couple of little techniques that you may have learned along the way of, NLP and all of the other modalities? What would you say to that person out there that's really holding on to money for dear life. And look, guys,
Yeah.
if it's the man or the woman or something else you're holding on to for dear life, you can listen to Paula and you can apply the same resource.
That is so true. It's so true. It applies, right? Because one, you've got to lift the pressure off it and focus back on you. And like what's coming up for me is one, like a little bit around the masculine and feminine here. But when you're wanting it too much and you're in that masculine and you're, actioning it and you're going after it. And I think the best way to describe it is around a relationship, right? Like you see money as a relationship. And if you've ever seen like a girlfriend or maybe, a work colleague, or maybe you've seen it on a movie where that girl is so obsessed with that guy that she's like doing everything. She's changing herself. She's trying everything to get him. And he doesn't want her. He's moving further and further and further away, right?
Yeah.
When the girl who is actually just focused on herself, focused on her confidence, and just knowing that she'll meet the right person at the right time and that she's already amazing and she's already attracting who she wants in her life because she's being that and she's being that energy. And that's the energy, coming out into the field that she's going to attract beautiful men into her life. It's the same with money. Like if we have so much pressure on it, I would suggest you take the pressure off. I think there's a lot of people out there, especially at the beginning, going, you know what, I'm going to go all into my business. And they jump all in and they haven't got any floaties on. They've got no backup plan, and they're desperate. And when you're in that desperate zone, the clients can feel it. They feel it and they run in the opposite direction, or you feel like you're coming up against a wall. You feel like you keep on not getting sale, whatever it is, or the launch doesn't work. You start to repel people because you're so desperate for it. But when you can be relaxed, when you can feel like you've already got the money, so whether that's staying in your job for longer or getting a job to support you in the meantime, to make sure that you are okay, or downsizing your life. Like I've had a lot of coaches move to Bali or whatever because it's cheaper and you can build your business while you're living in a beautiful place and your costs are dropping, right? For me, I couldn't drop those costs, because I had a lifestyle to uphold, right? I had 3 kids. My oldest son has 2 disabilities, so there's a lot of money needed to help him, which I decided early on that I would earn the money, not be the full-time carer, right? And I met my new partner, Johnny, and so he had 2 kids and we had them full-time. So all of a sudden we had 5 kids and a lifestyle to uphold, right? So I couldn't be that person who went, oh, you know what, I just have to go all in without a backup plan. Like I made sure that when I jumped ship, like when I left that corporate space, that I had plenty of money to back me up. Like I had savings there in case things went wrong. So I didn't have to put pressure on the business to go, I have to make this money.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So I'm getting this real sense of like almost like a liberation. So it's like a real freedom, and there's a lot of wisdom in there that comes from your accounting background. And I hear what you mean. You've got to have that backup plan. It's easy for us to say you've got to feel abundant. You've got to know that you are abundant, and you've got to call in and state it in the now. I am abundant. I am rich. I am wealthy. However, if you've got this great big knot sitting in the bottom of your stomach because you don't know where your next meal is coming from, that's really going to be completely opposite to what you want to get, because energy is absolutely everything. Now, what I really heard in that conversation as well was another element of the detachment and where you didn't have to place any of that desperation, but there was also this, there was a plan. So you had a plan of action and a natural affiliation to be able to just kind of plan it and move into it. So who are you really, really raising up in the coaching space right now? Like, who are your avatars? And I mean, if you don't mind me butting in before you even answer, I wouldn't mind betting they're going to be women. Maybe you 15 years ago, 10 years ago, or whenever it was, maybe they did go through that big, massive loss. Maybe they went through bankruptcy. Maybe they've gone through this huge hurdle and they've even gone through a marital breakdown. And, you know, but tell me, who is your avatar and what do you actually do for them?
You're right. They are all women. They are all business owners. A lot of them have had businesses for a long time, so might have businesses for 20 years, 15 years. Some of them are fairly new, but most of them have been around for, you know, at least sort of, you know, 2 to 3 years in business. So I coach them on understanding their money, so like really growing their wealth and getting their time back. So those early concepts of, I guess, marketing and sales and authority are there if they want them, but I'm usually the people who come to me are a little bit further along in business.
Yep, got it. I mean, you were in a fairly, you did, you know, transition into a fairly kind of cushy corporate lifestyle where you had your own little corner office and everything. So when you kind of ventured into the coaching space, what was your first successful, I guess, opening, if you will, because I know that this is going to be, you know, a really big one for a lot of business people out there. What was it that you did that just went boom? Okay, I think, you know, you may not have known you nailed it, but you know, when you do something right, you've got to understand what works and do it again, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
What was that for you?
So it was a combination of mindset and showing up and doing the work, because I had to shift into seeing this business as the viable option, as the number one thing that I was focused on, that I was now a coach and I wasn't a corporate leader. So I had to shift the I guess, perspective of myself and my identity from this corporate woman who saw that as her number one thing to instead my coaching is my number one thing. But in that space too, what I see some people do, which I think is hindering them, is that they see their job as a problem and they get upset about going to work and they hate it and they only like their coaching or their business or whatever. So and that won't attract it either, because you're moving away and towards, and you're just clashing in the middle. So I saw that job as, I was thankful for it. I loved it. I loved the people that it was. I loved all the things about it and what it had given to me. And I also loved my business, but I saw my business as the number one. So I switched it in my head. And then I was applying things. I didn't actually have VAs to start off with, but I was getting my sons to help me. So my sons now are 18 and 16. They were like my little VAs. I was like, all right, can you send this to all of this list? Can you chat all of these people? Can you set up this email for me? And they were amazing. Like, so they would just get to the end of their little list and they're like, done, Mum. I'm like, great, fantastic. And what ended up happening was I ran a challenge and I had, I think it was 60 women sign up, and I got 41 sales calls. And I was like,
wow,
you do 41 sales calls.
You got 41 sales calls. Would you mind telling us what the topic was? How to be skinny and grow your boobs big? Like, what was it?
When I started my coaching, for the first year of my coaching, I just focused on women and relationships, like their relationships, because that was what I was going through at that point. And so I did something around, it would have been something around dating and masculine and feminine energy. And that just took off. I had all of these beautiful women join me, and so many of them say yes and join this group program, which just sparked the start of it.
Had you met your love then? Had you met Johnny?
I had met, I'd met Johnny.
Okay. Because I was just thinking, like, you know, I'm hearing the transition, like I've got a coach in my portal and I know she's really kind of going through that premenopausal kind of stage of life. And because she's going through it, she's now turned it into what she's actually teaching. And it's just so powerful. And, you know, what I have heard, a key word that I have heard you say, and especially with, you know, the showing up and, you know, just the way you go about doing that. And even going back to, you know, talking about the relationship with the man and, you know, focusing in on yourself and not kind of trying to be like this person that you're not, everything to everyone. But the word that comes to mind that stands out like a rocket is authenticity. Yeah. And, you know, it sounds like if there was a magic formula here to be able to show up, and you did that, you showed up and you showed women about, you know, what it takes to be in their masculine and their feminine energy and how to kind of harmonize that, obviously. And, you know, and talking about the dating, and then wow, bingo, you ended up with so many sales calls. So where to from there? What happened after that?
Well, I was running those group programs, and what happened after that was just completely unknown. So I'd sat there after that, and I can't remember, I was like at some virtual event because we're now in COVID, or like, you know, like that kind of time. And I remember saying, you know, they say, what would you like to do? And write it down. I wrote down that I'd like to be on radio, and I would like to have more, you know, media presence. Well, straight after that, I end up getting offered a radio. Like I saw someone pitching that they wanted someone on their radio show. So I put my hand up for that. And then I ended up with a magazine spread. And then I ended up on TV overseas being interviewed. And it was just like one thing after another of beautiful things that happened because I had that group program and what I ran there. And that's what really sparked the whole career, I guess.
Are you sure you're not the manifestation queen?
There's a lot of techniques that I use in that, you know, you know, I think that's why, you know, we met, because, yeah, it's just, I was actually thinking I need to be on another podcast, and then you come into my life, right? So
wow.
I absolutely believe that the thoughts that you put in, and that's, you know, a big thing that I changed. I had to decide what thoughts were going in and decide how I was turning up every single day. And no matter what other people were saying, no matter what other external input, no matter that I couldn't see it yet, that I was still living, you know, at my parents' house around boxes for ages, and then moving into my house with no furniture or anything. It was just, you have to just keep on believing.
It sounds like Jen Sincero, you're a badass, you know. I think she lived in her parents' garage for such a long time, and, you know, the all the affirmations and the, you know, the belief systems, but the, you know, the neuro-linguistic programming and the value system, and being able to shift that. And I feel there's a really big element about, you know, you've shown not only the universe and now on this podcast how you've grown from zero to hero, not just once, but you've done it twice. And here you are now creating such an incredible impact on, women who are, what are the women really, really desiring right now? Like, what's the next launch or challenge masterclass you've got coming?
Well, what I find is they've built these businesses, which is fantastic, but all of a sudden they're realizing that they can't take as much money as they thought. Some of them are burnt out with the amount of time that they're spending on their businesses, and they've been pouring all of this effort and time into a business to create wealth, which is the reason why they set it up in the first place, to have more time and to also have more wealth. But they haven't worked out the bit how to actually get the wealth out, right? Because they haven't got the structures in place or the pricing right, or, they've just pulled a pricing strategy sort of out of their head, or haven't updated it for a really long time, or they've lost their confidence because they've been in business for so long, and then all of a sudden they've got, their family helping them, or they've got, clients leaving them, and they haven't got a plan in place to go, what, I can safely know that I'm going to grow this business to this stage, and I can take this money for me to build my wealth for myself and for my family. And I think that's, a lot of the time is what is missing. And sometimes it comes down to their mindset around money, right? Like, some of them didn't have their values the same as me, didn't have a value around money. So of course they're not bringing in money, because they're bringing in enough to run the business and to pay the bills and to pay the staff that they've got, but not enough to give themselves a really decent chunk of that, right? Yeah. So that's a big focus. And I think if you asked any of my clients, they would say Paula's like definitely the money part and the finance part. They come out feeling a lot better about building their own wealth for their future. And I think it's just my background going, I don't want you to go through the same as me, losing it all because you haven't set yourself up.
Oh, that's absolutely right. You're a trailblazer, Paula, and it's women like you that lead the way and trailblaze. And that's why, getting into that mindset of what it takes, releasing and letting go of a lot of the bitterness as well, creating your affirmations, having the distinctive ability to discipline your life and know pockets of the day. That's, even though you haven't mentioned that, I'm getting from you that you would be disciplined enough to know when to turn on and when to turn off. And because I think we can fall into the category, when we are so gun-ho in our business, of being disconnected, like connected online and disconnected in real life.
Yes. Yeah. Disconnected with, because you're so focused on the business, and often so focused in areas that you enjoy, or spending too much time in those areas, and disconnected with family, disconnected with all the people in your life. And so having clear time, clear boundaries is so important, because otherwise the relationships with the people that you love, that you're probably building this for, are going to suffer.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Now, I always love to ask this question towards the end of every podcast, because I know that, the people in my portal will be going, ask her about all the strategies that she's set up to put into place. But I'm not sure whether we've got long enough for you to perhaps mention 3. Perhaps if you would be generous to share, what are the 3 most, I know price point and not just throwing spaghetti at the wall was just
I'll mention 3 for you, right? Because they'll want 3. They'll want some strategy, but I will just give you a little bit before that, because I want you to think about, there are so many weight loss programs out there, right? There are so many different weight loss programs, and you've probably seen someone lose weight on all of them. They've all got results, right? Because there's so many different strategies and so many different ways to do it. right? So it really is just finding a way that suits and sticking with it long enough. A lot of people come in and they start and they go, it's not getting me results, so I'll start a new one. So it's not getting me results, so I'll start a new one, right? You've got to be patient and you've got to give it time with you working the system, working your game, working your business, and tweaking as you go. But I will give you a couple of strategies. So that's just my little thing on strategy, because I do believe
that was absolute gold, because the story that came straight to me, and I think I've said it on a podcast before, but you're going to get it again, is the C.Y. O'Connor story, where C.Y. O'Connor built this pipeline and had done so much work on it. And then when he went to trial it, it didn't work. And he took his life. And I can't remember whether the story is the day later or the week later, all the water came through.
Correct.
And, it's like, don't give up.
Don't give up.
It's like, find a strategy, lay it down, be very deliberate and intentive about what you are delivering, be authentic, and keep going. Be consistent.
Yes.
And just keep on keeping on, because boom, baby, like that flow of water, it's going to be like a funnel and flow through.
Exactly. I love that. I love that. And just having the mindset behind it too, to go, it will happen, because if you believe that it won't, or you believe that it's not going to, then it won't. Like, whatever thought is in your mind will come true. So watch what those thoughts are, because if those thoughts are all, I'm not good enough, oh, that didn't work out, well, you're going to just keep on seeing more and more of that. If you want it to switch to more of what you want, you need to adopt that mindset that it will work, and it is working, and it's all working out, right? A couple of strategies that I absolutely love to give to my clients, and they also love, is really, I talk about getting intimate with your money, right? Because often coaches are out there and they're talking about increase your sales. But what they fail to tell you about is, like, you actually need to know about your money, right? If you want to build your wealth, if you're setting this business up for you and for your family's future, which you probably are, if you're quitting a job to move into this, then you want to make sure that you're okay, right? And often we don't want to look at the money. We just put our head in the sand, especially like a lot of women. We're taught that, oh, you're not good at math. Leave it for your hubby. He'll look after the finances. And so we're not really exposed to it. And there's a lot of resistance to actually looking at our own money and dealing with our own responsibilities that we've got there. Maybe you've got credit card debt. Maybe you've got a lot of debt in the business. Maybe you don't. Maybe you just have trouble holding on to the money. Maybe you spend it on everything. Maybe you look online, or you follow. I followed a coach's advice before, and spend a whole heap of money in a place where it really shouldn't have been spent in my business. And I knew that, right? Because I wasn't clear enough on my own situation. So, when you take the time to get intimate with your money, that's when we can start to go, okay, well, when is a good time to bring in that staff member? When are we going to grow the business? And sometimes it means stepping back to step forward. Like one of my clients, Emily, she had a business. When she came to me, she had a business making $13,000 each month. And she was like, I would like to grow this business. I am done with the little jobs. I want to do some really big ones. Now, she wanted to be, she had a service-based business. She wanted to take on some very, very big jobs. And we had to take a step back to get the business right, to understand the money, to understand when she could bring on the employees that she needed to support her to be able to do that. But not only that, Emily was a mum, right, of a little one. So you can imagine she doesn't have a lot of time, right, to spend with her and run this business and grow it. And so getting her help as well, because it's often expected that you just run everything, right? You're the cleaner, you're the childminder, you're the mom, you're the cook, that you're everything. Plus you're the business, right, running the business.
The domestic goddess.
Yes, yeah, and especially when the business isn't at the point where you want it to be at, then you feel like you've got to be everything, right? So getting Emily help.
You can't be everything to everyone, and you can't be everything to everything, because you'll be nothing. I guess really it's really mastery, isn't it? It's the mastery. And I'm hearing, because you're a manifestation queen, I can tell you that right now. And I see that you're very focused. So wherever that focus is going, so you'd be the sort of person that you would say, okay, right, this is, what I'm going to do and give to the money, to the business, to the children, to cooking scrambled eggs. I feel that there's an omnipresence about you, Paula, in everything you're doing that's succeeding.
That's really beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And just one last question. Thank you so much for the gold. It's just the first thing I'm going to be doing is adding it into my Royalty Elite Crown portal. We will be getting your details so that people can get in contact with you as well. After we finish and you go to bed tonight and maybe wake up tomorrow morning and feel incredible because you've just blessed so many people out there with this, with the wealth of what you've spoken about. Is there any last words that you would like to share? And you would have thought, I would have loved to have said that, perhaps to your future avatar that is praying for you to come along.
I think if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling like you've got this business going, but you're not able to take enough money or you don't have enough time, that you have to make the decision to change that, right? You don't have to pack it all up. A lot of people I speak to, it's like 20 years in, I'm going to pack it all up. You don't have to pack it all up. You haven't failed. You haven't done anything wrong. You're able to make a decision to make a change. And, that change might be in so many different ways, but just to go out there and decide that you're going to make that change and you're going to find out how you're going to do it, because if you've had the ability to build that business, you have that ability to take it to the level that you want to.
Absolutely. And, channeling that desire as well, even bringing in some of the desires and some of the abilities and the successes, and stacking them. You know how we stack things in NLP, and then we kind of harness in all these great feelings. Like there's nothing like it. You get into a big circle with people and you say, okay, step into belief, a time when you believe something with every cell of your body. Now step into a time when you're just feeling so much fun and adventure and relaxation. And now step into a time of absolute gratitude where you are just absolutely joyful, maybe a birth, and you're just building and building and building and bringing it up. And then just go and channel that in to your business. Paula, I just want to thank you so much for all the wisdom that you've brought to us tonight. And I can't thank you enough. And I'm sure my audience will feel exactly the same gratitude.
Thank you so much for having me, Terry.
Woo!